Adventures, Escapades and Exploits, Volume 1. Almost 30 years ago, my sons, especially the eldest one, pushed very strongly for me to get down in recording form or book form the many unique experiences that my life had gone through. Of course, no one thinks of their life as unique, but after all these years, I've come to see, as I've shared my stories with thousands of people, that these are indeed unique experiences, and it would be my pleasure to share them with you and cause you to get a glimpse of other places in the world, as well as experiences that humans go through. I was born in a little town called Kitwe, in those days under British rule, in a country called Northern Rhodesia. It was part of what was known then as the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. There were three countries involved in that federation. They were Nyasaland, Northern Rhodesia, and Southern Rhodesia. Well, I was born in 1954, and life was peaceful. There were no problems, there was no pressure, but very soon I was going to move into a world of change, crisis, and challenge for sure. I've known nothing but trouble, challenge, danger, crisis, and challenges since I was 6 years old. I remember as a young boy of 6 years old in 1960, watching a caravan of cars, left-hand drive vehicles, strange-looking vehicles. We had never seen them before. Of course, they were, many of them, very, very clearly French. And they were pouring over the border just north of us from the Congo. I remember the startled, the fearful look on people's faces very, very clearly as their cars rumbled through the towns in which we lived, and they were piled high with suitcases and all types of paraphernalia as they were running for their lives. Congo had burst into a tremendous crisis. There was wholesale slaughter going on for that time. Well, it wasn't long until trouble broke out on our dear country, Northern Rhodesia. In the north, a woman by the name of Alice Lenshina and many others started all types of atrocities and war, seeking to get independence and sensing that independence was close and they wanted to be the ones to take over the country. Well, in 24th of October 1964, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda took leadership, and relative calm returned to the country. The unfortunate part is that the country, being run by people that had never had the experience to run a country, the country declined very quickly, especially in the realm of education. And the mining companies knew very well that they were going to lose staff unless they did something regarding educational issues. And so what they offered is free flights and travel to children to go to neighboring countries so that they could keep up the education that they once enjoyed. Well, of course, at 11 years old, I found myself on a bus, express motorways, with my sister, and we drove out of our little town, watching my parents fade in the distance, never again going to have a family as people know family. In the years ahead, which I was in at that time, grade 7, and now it was going to be until grade 12, I had very little time back at home with my mom and dad as family, and my life changed forever. That was obvious. I now had to learn to be independent. I had to learn to get on with life. And arriving at boarding school, I walked into what I'd never experienced before. Very aggressive bullies that enjoyed my tremendously soft nature. And so started about a 2-year cycle of tremendous bullying and heartache. I think I cried every day for hours. But you know how it is. You either survive or you die. And thank God there was something in me that rose up, and I'll never forget the day that a guy tried to bully me, and I just said, this is the end, internally. And I remember beating him, because I'd gone to boxing for many years. I remember beating him under tables, over tables, out the preparation rooms, and so on. The crowd gathered, and that was the last day that I was going to face being bullied again. Unfortunately, it turned into me being a person that made aggression my friend. Never bullied anybody, but was ready for a fight anytime, and so built that into my makeup, and unfortunately got me into a lot of trouble over the years. Well, went through school, loving boarding school, to be honest, made very good friends, loved the whole concept of a bunch of boys together doing reckless things, breaking out at night, stealing fruit, using teachers' vehicles to go and race at a local race course, many things that were, to us in those days, very, very funny. Thank God nobody got hurt. And so we just continued to not so much live to study, but live to have fun. And of course, the sports field offered a wonderful place to express yourself. And I loved rugby tremendously, played in key positions in that, and of course loved athletics probably more. And so did shot put, javelin, and discus, and held school records throughout the time that I went into high school till I finished. Was a wonderful boost for me as a human being. Well, eventually got to the end of our schooling year, and an incident happened that showed me how strong racialism is. And I'm not talking about black on white or white on black. I'm talking about white on white. South Africa, especially where I was at school, was known for the hatred of what was known as Afrikaans. Those were people that were really of Dutch origin and had kept their original language, and what they called Soties or Salties, which were English, who were white and more pale skin. And there was often clashes on the street or wherever you went, where the obvious hatred would show forth very quickly. I remember one day getting invited with my friends to go out and have a party in the park, and the idea was simple: just get a couple of drinks, go and have the party, and then get up to some nonsense and come back to the boarding school. Being seniors and holding positions of leadership, we could break out fairly easy and no one would know. Unfortunately, that night I couldn't go with him because I had an exam the next morning, which I had not studied for, which was par for the course. But, of course, studied late at night, woke up the next morning and saw a lot of activity of people coming and going with clothes on, which was not normal because when you get up it's pajamas. And so something obviously was going on and I wasn't aware what it was. And I'll never forget the SST, which is called the Senior Supervising Teacher, standing up and saying a number of boys, what we call bunked out, which means broke out of the boarding school without permission. A number of boys bunked out last night, and as a result of which, and he named the boy's name, is now dead. I couldn't believe it. He was the most popular guy in the school. Everybody loved him. He was going to be the captain of the rugby team. He was clearly, the most outstanding leader that we had. And what had happened is they got into the park and they got drunk and they started breaking street lights. And the police were called and they tried to apprehend them. And this young man broke away from the police, and the police chased him and hit him over the back of the head with a gun and killed him. And unfortunately, the police were like 100% Afrikaans. And of course, we were English. And so the whole city broke out into an uproar and an outrage. And it's something that stood out to me for the years that were to come. And so I ended my school years in South Africa and was now lined up to go to university in a city called Port Elizabeth to do computer science.